Morning, everyone, and hello to you all. Welcome to our webinar today, where we'll be handling the topic of power of business innovation in practice. When you talk about innovation, innovation is not only a science, but a way of life. Join us to understand how business can practice this novelty and elevate the status in innovation native companies that are not only dominate the market, but transform mankind. To help us through this particular topic today is our return guest speaker, Zach Moseti. Zach is an experienced data engineer with over 11 years of experience in data management in the NGO world. He brings with him a lot of experience and wealth in research in the field of knowledge management and innovation. Zach holds a master's MSc Information and Knowledge Management and a BSc in Mathematics and Computer Science. He also holds other certifications in data science. So we're looking forward to having him take us get through this particular topic of innovation. I hope most of us are coming from our previous webinar where Zach also took up the topic of knowledge management, which was very insightful. For this particular webinar, it's going to take us 1 hour, 45 minutes of Zach presentation, and we'll take 15 minutes at the tail end where we'll take any questions and we'll offer any answers that there may be. Myself, my name is Purity Wanjiro. I'm the Director of Accurex Leadership and Management Consultants Limited. We're a HR consultancy firm. We do a lot of trainings, just like the one we are doing today. We also do coaching, we do mentorship, we do recruitment, anything that is HR related. That's what we do here at Accurex. So I take this opportunity to welcome Zach on board. Feel free to interact with him as the conversation goes. If you have any questions, just drop them off at the chat box on your Zoom window and we'll be able to tackle them. Zach, karibu sana. You can take it up from there. I think your mic is on mute, Zach.
Sorry, now you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us through this session. Hope you're keeping well. Hope this time has given you a little reflection time and focus on what's most important in your business or your place of work. I think the most important thing is that pause that we got so that we're able to look forward to the things that we can do differently when things normalize or the new normal. So I'm going to share my screen. Pretty, you received the presentation. I don't know if at first you wanted to share, let me do it.
All right.
Okay. So like Pretty said, my background is in data, but a lot of research in innovation, and also I've done a lot of projects that have incorporated the innovation skills and innovation techniques that I'm going to take you through this session. This session, I'm going to keep it a bit shorter than the previous session so that we have more time to engage and ask questions. So the topic is business innovation in practice. And I'm going to try to make it more practical so that you can take the tidbits of innovation in your life or in your projects. And at this moment, I'd like you to indulge me in an exercise. I'd like each one of you to just close your eyes for about 1 second. And if you're listening to this webinar in a place where you can't close your eyes, if you're driving, don't indulge. But just for the rest of the people, I'd like you to close your eyes for a second. Then go deep into your mind. Think about 2 parts of your mind, the conscious part and the subconscious part. And when you look at the conscious part, think of all the things that you know that have been invented, from the car to your phone, anything that you can visualize in this world. And the other part of the mind, let's call it the subconscious mind. Think of anything that has not been invented, anything that you've thought about, anything that you think it's a crazy idea. Now, when you look at those two parts of your brain, I want you to open your eyes right now. And when you differentiate the two parts of those of your mind now, the part that is subconscious, that has ideas that have not been articulated or have not been manifested, that is where innovation starts. It starts in your mind. It starts with the image that you create in your subconscious mind, or the image that you think is a crazy idea. But once you bring it front and try to activate it, that's where innovation starts. And when you look at that particular session, the most important thing to remember is where innovation starts. And we're going to look at the introduction of innovation from its origin. Then we're going to define innovation. Then we're going to look at the power of innovation, which is what you can apply in your business from examples from other organizations that apply innovation at a higher level. Then we're going to look at the creative process. Then we're going to look at the barriers to innovation, and we're going to look at how to spark innovation in your organization. And this is just like a call of action for each and every one of you. Then we're going to go through a short question and answer session, and you give me the feedback. So the exercise that we did, where you look deep into your mind, this is what Gary Hamel, who is a management guru, there's a quote in one of his books that says, companies fail to create the future, not because they fail to predict it, but because they fail to imagine it. It's creativity and curiosity that they lack, not perspicuity. And perspicuity is just that clarity of insight that companies and organizations have. And the specific note that you can take from this, an organization can have clarity in the business that they do, but if they do not imagine and come up with innovations, they will not transcend change or move from different levels when competition is steep. So there are two images here, and I'd like us to think about what's the connection between this gentleman called Sylvan Goldman and a shopping cart. So Sylvan Goldman is an American inventor and entrepreneur, and he used to run a supermarket called Humpty Dumpty in the US. And one day he was sitting in his office after work, and he was just thinking on how he can improve his business. And while he was sitting there, he looked at there was a bunch of mesh, like a trash, sitting at the side of his desk. So what he did is he thought of, how can I improve the way my customers carry their goods through the supermarket process. And he came up with a shopping cart. And the reason why I use this example is because it clearly shows the innovation came from his mind, and he practiced this innovation and has a product that has transcended time, and we use it up until today. So let's look at the origin and definition of innovation. And when you look at the origin of innovation, this is credited to a gentleman called Schumpeter. This was an Austrian author, industrialist, and also like a business advisor. And in 1911, he wrote a book called Theory of Economic Development. And this was the first time that he actually articulated the difference between innovation and invention. And when you look at invention, is when you discover something new that people can marvel at and people can use. But when you combine that invention with a beneficial use where you have someone using that particular invention to scale it up for commercial purpose and commercial use for the greater benefit of humanity, that's when you can categorize that as innovation. So when you look at Schumpeter's definition of innovation, he talks about bringing a new product into market, and the impact that that product has is on economic benefit. And this can only be done through creativity. And one of the things that we attribute innovation is, innovation can be on products, it can be on processes, it can be on services and technologies. And one of the most important definitions as I've differentiated between innovation and, and invention is that when you look at the impact of that invention, when it can be scaled up and different people from different parts of the world can add different processes to it and improvements, then you have large scale use of that invention, then it quantifies as an innovation. And one of the best examples that we can define innovation is Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. And this invention was something that in the US people marveled at. But once he put the infrastructure in terms of the organization and the distribution, is when now this invention of the light bulb became the innovation of large-scale electrification. So I'm gonna go and look at the types of innovation so that when you're going into a process, when you're trying to come up with an innovative product, what should you put in mind? What's the type of innovation that you're gonna focus your energy on? So there are three major types of innovation that we have. So the first one is incremental innovation. And when we talk about incremental innovation, this is a small improvement or enhancement on a product or a service, and mostly on a process. And when you look at incremental innovation, this is innovation that is done on a product to ensure that you have a competitive edge over in a competitive market. And the incremental innovation usually is on a technical device. Like for example, when you look at the technical innovations like the phone or even the telephone in terms of communication, you have to look at this type of invention. How do I make it to serve the bigger masses in a more efficient way? So you have to think of the end user when you talk about incremental features, because when you talk about the end users, their desires keeps on changing. So you also have to make sure that the innovation has room for that different change. And an example here is a supermarket cart. When you look at Goldman's initial design, it was very industrial. It had meshes and very, very basic wheels that could only just move in one direction. But a lot of engineers came and made an improvement in the product so that now it could move in different directions, and you can have even like the current supermarket carts that we have, where you can even have a miniature car where your kid can sit in. And now the second type of innovation is radical or disruptive innovation. So when you talk about a radical innovation, this is an innovation that employs new strategy into a product or service, and it differs from the incremental innovation in that the design makes a significant impact by replacing the service, the method, or the technology. An example of this is, look at the Tesla electric cars in the US. So there were electric cars before, but when you look at what Tesla did, they were able to do some engineering on the batteries so that the batteries can charge longer and also can last longer in terms of now mass production of those batteries. So it was a disruptive, and it brought about a change in use of the electric cars to the commercial electric cars that we have. And the technology is also sold to other businesses and other car makers, and even when you look at the kind generators that we use. Now, the third type of innovation is revolutionary. And just as the word revolutionary speaks of, this is innovation that's a game changer. And it occurs when there's a total new concept that is born. And one of the best examples is the invention of the internet or the email. When this was done, this was a new way of communicating, or a new way of accessing information. Another example is Airbnb or Uber. It changed how we interact with maybe the hotel system or the rental the taxi system of a car. And this type of innovation brings about a change in mindset in terms of how do you consume a product. And another example is the iPhone. In terms of functionality, in terms of the user design, it really changed how the phone industry works. So I'd like to take you through the creative process. And when you're going through the creative process, it's important to remember the different types of innovation when you're going through the creative process, because some innovation types will need more investment in terms of time, in terms of resources, and in terms of the number of ideas that you bring about. And we have about five processes, and it'll depend on the different approaches that a company has, but it basically follows this flow. And the reason for this is to make sure that you don't have an innovation that fails. And we look at examples of companies that had this challenge. So the first process from representation is idea generation. And when you look at idea generation, this is just holistically talks about how do you do the brainstorming of an idea. And this also incorporates collecting of the ideas. And it's important for organizations to have a system where they collect ideas from many people within the system. And this is called divergent techniques of innovation, where you collect as many ideas, because the more ideas you have, the better chance you have in going forward through for the ideas to go through the process and going through to the end. So the second stage is screening. So all these ideas that you've collected, whichever system that you use to collect your ideas, what is your vetting system? Are these innovation ideas appropriate to the business case or the question or the challenge that we are trying to address? And at this point, it's important to know who is going to take charge of the screening process, because you'd want someone who's dedicated to making it very objective, depending on who collects the information or the idea of the innovation. And the third part is the experimentation part. So the different ideas that have, or the innovation that have been screened through the second process, you have to iron out the different possible teething problems with going through with this innovation. And at this point, it's also important to make sure there's someone attached to the process of experimentation. So if you have like 10 ideas, so you assign the people who are going to champion those ideas and be very objective in terms of looking at what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario if we go with this type of innovation. So next one is commercialization step. So this step is just about market ready preparation. When within the organization, you look at the different teams that will give advice from different perspectives. So you have people from the technical bit of it, they look at the innovation. Then you have people from maybe sales and marketing, that they know that how the customers will interact with the product and possible challenges or possible areas where you're going to market this particular innovation. And now the last part is diffusion and implementation. So when you talk about implementation, this is the rolling out of the innovation. So once the innovation is ready, you can't just roll it out without considering a few factors. The few factors is how do you scale that innovation? And also how relevant will that innovation be with the products that you have within the market? And I can give a simple example of for people who are from East Africa and South Africa. There was an advert about Aromat. The advert was, anything that you eat is just boring. But with Aromat, it becomes, very explosive. So that was part of innovation in terms of marketing. But where Aromat failed is they did not connect with the other teams in terms of supply chain and continuing with the products, because they had a very good advertising, but when you go to the ground, what are people saying about Aromat? How many people are buying the Aromat? What are the flavors of Aromat that we can promote? So I'd like to give an example of Toyota Sienna. This is like a mini SUV, you can say that, by Toyota, and the main market was in the US. And for anyone who's familiar with the US market, there's a phrase called a soccer, or like the parents of people who have more than two or three kids, they go to, like family drives, and they need an SUV that's, one, comfortable, and two, has space to accommodate maybe the baby seats. So when you look at the Toyota Sienna, the chief engineer who was responsible for launching the Toyota Sienna, he took it through this particular creative process. So the first thing he did is he was given resources, and he went to the US and drove through 50 out of the 52 or 50, he went through the 50 states in the US driving the 2003 Sienna model. And he went around interviewing people, going to the different soccer games, going to the movies. And what he also did is he went to the 13 provinces in Canada and some towns in Mexico, because North America was the target market. So that was the idea generation stage, where he was collecting the ideas on what would be required in the model. Then he took all this data after going for 53,000 miles within the US and Canada to the screening process with his team. And they look at what the different mothers that he talked about, even the kids that he engaged with, what are the most comfort things that they would like to be introduced in this model. Then they went to the experimental stage, where they looked at the designs that a lot of SUVs in the US or mini SUVs use. Then the market ready step is they looked at, if we introduce this, what is the best time to introduce it? What is the best time to launch it? And now they did the rollout. And the results were very impressive. They had more than 60% improvement in sales of the 2013 model. So it's important when you look at innovation and the creative process, you consider all these factors from, if it's gonna be something disruptive, what effort are you going to put in? If it's going to be something incremental, like this one was an incremental innovation. So they put resources. Someone went there for almost a year just to collect this data. So in this next slide, I'm going to talk about the power of innovation and why your company needs to consider innovation. And not just the company, I'm talking about even you within yourself. How are you implementing innovation strategies or techniques to make sure that you have a successful career or successful business? And the first example I'm going to talk about is innovation transcends change. And this is about adaptability. And one of the best examples is a company called 3M. And 3M Science is one of those companies, if you follow innovation forums, it's one of those countries that for over 20 years, many decades actually, it's been consistently appearing as one of the most innovative companies. And they bring us very user-friendly products, like for example, Scotch Brite that we use to clean our utensils. That was an innovation by 3M. And they win so many awards in terms of innovation. And one of the things I have to mention is for 3M, they, within their policies or within their mission statement, they have to rely on like 50% of their income has to come from an innovation that's not older than 3 years. So they've done an like intentional approach to innovation. And this has made them very adaptable over the years. Then another example is the power of innovation is to change the world socially and economically. And this can clearly be seen in YouTube and Airbnb. You see, like YouTube, it's a global platform where different people from different world can share their product, they can share their skill set, and also people can earn money. And if you're interested, you can research on how YouTube pays people depending on the type of, depending on the country that you're in. There's a different ratio called CPM. This is, you know, like a research you can go and do and to see how valuable YouTube is to someone maybe in China or someone in Zimbabwe or even in Kenya. And also Airbnb has enabled different people from different parts of the world to be able to rent their space through the app, and it's very transparent. And when you look at the connectivity, it gives you a platform where you can do all these things from one platform, and it's very cost effective. Then another power of innovation is re-engineering the supply chain. And a good example of this, when you talk about engineering supply chain, there's a company called Kias, and this is a wellness company, where what they do is they partner with organizations to ensure that their staff have self-care. So within the app is you're able to, with your colleagues, you're able to follow on, for example, how your diet is. You're able to see how do you do your work-life balance. You're able to do your exercise. You're able to get recipes. You're able to get health advice. So when you talk about supply chain, you get all that you need from a simple app, and they use a powerful tool called gamification. Gamification is when they use the system of gaming and competition to achieve health. And when you look at the surveys done by Kia and other innovation platforms that they do the analysis, like more than 80% consistently users of Kia say that they have an improvement in their self-care. And in Kenya, there's an app called AfyaPap. If you're interested, you can look at AfyaPap. They also do the same, but they focus mostly on connecting you and the doctor and some aspect of fitness. So now power of innovation is sustainability. And when you look at where we are in this world right now, resources are becoming slim, and especially countries like which have not enough land. We talk about vertical farming, and vertical farming is when you look at, for example, let me give an example of if you have 1 acre piece of land. In countries like Kenya, which we do have land, we'll do farming on that 1 acre, then look for another acre. But in advanced countries like Singapore, what they do is they do a construction on that 1 acre. Maybe they can do 7 stories, or 11 stories. So what they do, they've converted 1 acre into 11 acres. And within that building, they do new farming ways, like it's called aeroponics. Aeroponics is simply when you're doing farming without using soil and very limited use of water. Actually, they use like steam, just droplets of water. And there's a company in Kenya called Apollo Agriculture who are trying to bring sustainability in agriculture, where they use satellite data, they use big data and artificial intelligence to advise farmers on the best methods of farming. And Apollo Agriculture also re-engineering the supply chain, where they connect with the farmers and the financing and also insurance, at the same time giving them data on the best way to go from the farm to value addition to connecting with the end user. Yeah, another power of innovation is the competitive edge. And one of the rising companies that I've witnessed and done research on is called Meitun Diampan. This is a Chinese company that has really grown in the last 3 years in terms of innovation. And what they do is they've helped companies digitize their services. So what they do is they connect local companies. If you're selling tickets to a show, if you're selling food, if you're selling hair salon products, and they do this through one app. And what they do is they help the businesses want to digitize through their platform. So you don't even need to go through the digitization process on yourself or on your own. You just go to their platform and they do all that for you. And according to Fast Company, which is one of those companies that do an innovation index, Made in Japan is the most innovative company right now since 2018. And this is, they pride themselves as doing the Amazon service, but making it like more connected to the local businesses. So another one is globalization and creative collaboration. So when you talk about innovation, you really need to create a platform where you get so many ideas in one place and you have a way of managing those ideas. And when you talk about managing ideas, it's about how are you going to manage the type of ideas that you get, have accountability on following up on the different ideas, going through the innovation stage to production. And one platform that is very useful is called Slack. And Slack is a company that helps organizations to collaborate. If you, even if you're a team of 5 or a team of 10, even a team of 100, when you go to the Slack platform, you can collaborate your ideas, then create something called channels, where you're able to put the different ideas into the different business cases. And their motto is to be full digital chief of staff, to assist your staff members to be managed using also, machine learning or artificial intelligence. Then the last one I'd like to talk about is reengineering your customer value and needs. And this best example is Jumia Foods or Jumia Travel, where they look at the needs of the customer, at the comfort of your home, and also the things that you're most likely to want or most likely to, depending on your searches, they give you, they already know what you want almost before you even know it. And they service that through their, the different platforms that they have. So the other examples that I won't go deep into, like the invention of the plasticine. Plasticine is like an educative tool that was invented by a teacher called William Herbert. And you can see how it's been useful in terms of educating children and doing other models. And also innovation of grocery stores, or what we call supermarkets. This is credited to a guy called Clarence Sanders in the US. He had a supermarket called Piggly Wiggly. And one day he just thought, how am I going to bring about the introduction of self-service in the supermarket, where you get your goods and go through the process and also go through the cashier. That's something that's credited to Clarence. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, the barriers to innovation. And it's important when you look at the barriers, you also think about the process, the creative process of innovation, because that is affected. And also when you look at the types of innovation, it can lead to failure of your innovative process. And I'm going to look at 3 key areas: the technological part of it, the organizational structure part of it, and the financial bit of it. And the first barrier I want to talk about is the past success can cloud your drive for innovation. When I talk about past success, when you gloat so much in your past success and don't focus on a strategy that will ensure that you're continually innovating, then you'd fall into the challenges that Nokia and BlackBerry have gotten. And this is a case that I know most of you know and understand it. So Nokia and BlackBerry at one time had the biggest market share in the mobile industry. And especially BlackBerry had a focus on security and also like top level management, how they can use a more secure, more techy one-on-one communication that is safe. But what happened is when iPhone came into the picture and the CEO then of BlackBerry heard about iPhone, he said, that's an innovation that's gonna fail in the next year. But what happened, and this is history, is iPhone came and took up the market share, and Nokia and BlackBerry were not able to survive. So the remedy to this is use the 3M strategy. Put within your organization or yourself an innovation policy or innovation, putting it as part of your lifestyle, so that you say that for me to survive, I have to have continual innovation processes, maybe every day, every year, or like 3M, every like 50% of their income has to come from a new innovation, not older than 3 years. So another barrier is over-reliance on customer feedback. And this is very key when you look at the story of Xerox. So Xerox wanted to introduce the printer. And at that time, when they went to do the market research and they did surveys and sent experts around to ask users if this would be an appropriate invention or something they'd use, a lot of feedback was, that's not something that's gonna work for us. So what they did is they followed the lean strategy, where you build something that you know your consumers might need because you're looking at the business case. This is a problem that we have. So how can we solve it? So once they did that, they measured what is the best way to do it, and they did it using a minimum viable product, which is an introduction of a small portion prototype where you're able to learn, is this working, or how can we change it? And from history, Xerox now is synonymous to printing and copying, because they were able to come up with a strategy of not just relying on customer feedback. So another barrier is fear that your new product is going to kill or cannibalize your old product. Instant pictures using film. And unfortunately, when you look at Polaroid, they were among the first companies to go into digital photography, same as Kodak. But the problem is they thought that digital photography is not something that's going to be sustainable. Or they thought that if they introduce digital photography, it's going to kill the current product, which is the film and the instant photograph. And what happened is they clearly lost that opportunity, because now once Sony came up with a digital camera, they are not able to come back. And this can be example with Zoom, what Zoom did to Skype. And how to mitigate this is, you see a company like Washington Post, which used to have like the traditional way of the newspaper or giving out information. They were able to win the digital way. And that's the only way they've been able to survive this wave. So another one is financial strain. And financial strain is very straightforward. Lack of funding, especially for startups, you can't go beyond the prototype. So there are a lot of innovations that, because of lack of funding, they are not successful in going through the innovation process and bringing their product to fruition. But at least with advancement now, we have venture capitalists that can invest in these companies, but they also have a downside. So that one is organizational politics, and this is in fighting. And when you look at the Kodak story, the engineer who first created the digital photography was at Kodak. But the problem is when he shared this idea with management, they say that is a product that is not gonna work. And what happened is when Sony came and introduced the same idea and ran with it, Kodak were not able to. It took them 10 years just to try to catch up, and they were not able to do that up until today. And best way to mitigate this, have leadership accountability when it comes to the innovation process. So when you have a system where it captures all the ideas for innovation, who is going to be accountable for that? And there has to be a system where you can see the process of the innovation so that if someone is being a hindrance, it's very easy to remove that person. So next, I'd like to take it back to you, and you share your piece. If you've ever come up with an innovative initiative, you can put in the chat that, yes, I have, and maybe at part 2, you can say, if it's yes, what was the initiative? And if no, why haven't you come up with an initiative? Is it because of a certain challenge? You can even name the challenge. And number 3 is, what was the benefit of that innovation? So Purity, maybe you'll continue with looking at the chat as people give or share their views on that.
All right.
And as people share their views on that, it's important to remember that if you're not thinking about innovation, this is the time to think about innovation. And when you have an innovative idea, you ask yourself a few questions. Is there a place where I can use it? Is there a place where I can capture it? Is there a place I can collaborate with people? And what will be the benefit of that innovation? So you have to look at the problem that you're solving. So now it's all about, after you know what innovation is and the power of innovation, now how do you spark it in your life? How do you now start the innovation? What are the tools that you look at? What is the best way to approach it? So here, I'm gonna look at how do you measure creativity and leadership in creativity and accountability, which is most important. So when you look at leadership resource allocation in your organization, or if you run a business, how are you ensuring that innovation is put at the forefront? And when we talk about leadership and resource allocation, it does not have to be you at the board level or the management level saying that we have to put this money into innovation. It can be as simple as a strategy employed by Google, which is called the 80-20 rule, where they say 20% of your work in the organization, they give you 20% of your work time to work on a project that you are passionate about and will bring an impact in the organization. And this has really helped the organization to come up with things like Gmail. And also a company like 3M has that particular strategy where they say, we're going to give you 20% or 15% of the time. Maybe if you do 8 hours a day, we're going to give you 20% of that to work on a passion project, and we're going to give you the support. So this is how you spark innovation. Then the second one is invest in innovation-centric collaborations. And this is in terms of platforms. And I'd like all of you to take note. There's a platform that's called Vima. That is VIIMA. And Vima is a very good innovative platform where you can collaborate your ideas, and it guides you through the different processes of innovation and how you can build on that innovation. And this is a relatively new platform, and I believe it's going to have that Zoom effect in terms of a lot of companies using it, because for now they have the same type of adaptability in terms of the users. Up to 50 users, it is free. You can use the platform. But beyond that, then the organization would have to pay. But just take time and go through the Vima platform, because you're able to it has a divergent technique where you can be able to get so many ideas. Then it guides you on how to assign the idea to a champion and takes you through how do you make sure you screen the idea, you vet the idea to the business case or the problem that you're trying to solve. And there are I think there are over 20 platforms that deal with innovation, but Vima to me is the best because I've used it and I've seen the value that it can bring when you're working with a team. From a team of 5, 3, even if you're only 2 and you have an idea, you can use Vima. So another one is practice relentless experimentation. And when you talk about experimentation, all the ideas that you have, make sure you experiment on them. Take them through the innovation process. And Google Venture, which is a part of the Google family, they have something called the design sprint method, where a team comes, if, for example, maybe you're on Vima. So a team comes to that platform, they give their ideas, then they give them like 5 days to take the ideas through the innovative cycle, from design, from idea to design, experimentation, and look at how can it benefit. And this can only be done when you have a platform and you have a team that's accountable to the creative process. So another one is build a balanced team. And especially for recruiters like Purity, this is something that when you're recruiting staff members or recruiting a team, you would find managers would want people who are like them, people who would conform to their likeness. This is unconscious bias. All of us have it. But it's very intentional that you make sure the team is balanced, because you can only provide one side of the idea from your own perspective, but you need the other perspectives to make it a holistic idea. So another thing to consider when you talk about innovation is applying the principles of design thinking. So design thinking is when you look at the end user and the usability of that product to the end user, and then you take it through a design process where you make it very user-friendly. And there's an aspect called zero distance, where you reduce the distance between you and the user in terms of communication and how they can give you feedback from the same platform. And this is, a good example is Amazon. When you look at Amazon, you're able to interact with the platform, give your views, go and look at the reviews that have been given by the users, and you're able to give feedback to Amazon that they can use instantly in their design of a product. And Amazon have very good products like forgotten the name, the product that you can when you issue, it has AI. When you issue instructions, it it corresponds to the instruction, just like Siri. I've forgotten the name at this point. The other one is approach projects from a point of view of reimagining the target customer. So when you look at the business case or the problem you're trying to solve, look at the target customer. How do you reimagine them? And a good example is Equity Bank. Equity Bank redefined the customer value by looking at the untapped market of those people who the traditional banks are looking at them as unbankable. And Equity was able to come up with a system or a process or platform or products that are able to capture this, and they were able to become one of the most stable banks over the years in Kenya. So now, as I finish this presentation, this is more of a call of action to each and every one of you. Are you playing your part in innovation? And I'll speak of it in two forms. The first is an acronym I call CALB, where the first one is about capture. How do you capture your ideas? Because innovation starts from an idea, your imagination. So how do you capture that idea? And I've given you an example of Vima, which is a very good platform that you can use to capture all your ideas. Then how do you apply these ideas? You take them through the process objectively. And a tool that you can use is, Tony Robbins has a process called RPM, where he looks at the results, he looks at the purpose, and he looks at the massive action. Massive action is when, for example, you have an idea to solve maybe the customer experience in your business. Then customer experience, that's the business case. Then what's the purpose? You have to make sure that customers feel like they're most valued person. So how do you do mass action? Is these ideas that you have captured in Vima or whichever platform that you go with, how do you fit into that particular purpose? And it has to be something that you can apply it within that learning process. If the team has said, let's use the data or let's use the feedback that's coming from the customer, then you immediately apply that into that context. Then the third one is learn. And learn is about learning the different innovative strategies that these big companies use. And you can follow those big companies and also individuals that push for innovation, for ideas on how to learn on innovation processes. Then the other one is build. If you have an idea, it's gone through the process, put effort into building it. Then you can build it from the small bit of it, as from the small aspect of learning the challenges that it might have, to taking it to prototyping, taking it to the market and learning from it. Then you can scale. And the second bit of it is changing our mindset in how we play our part in innovation. The first is invest at any level. I think for most of us as Kenyans, we think that innovation has to be something invested by maybe a billionaire. And I think you can attest to this. Kenya, we have a lot of billionaires, but we are struggling in terms of these billionaires becoming venture capitalists and investing in ideas and innovation from the companies. And one of the people that I really emulate is, there's an entrepreneur called Tony Elimuli from Nigeria. He has this foundation that yearly he takes up entrepreneurs, and they go through a training process and they get funding. And there's been a lot of, Kenyans have really participated in this particular foundation in terms of the innovative ideas. And there's a lady called Sigana that has a company called Alternative Waste. And he went to that program in 2016 and was able to employ slum dwellers in coming up with renewable energy from waste and from charcoal waste. And I remember from 2016, she was able to make 10 million Kenya shillings in terms of revenue and employing over 50 slum dwellers. And this is just investing. So at your level, you can either invest in terms of your skills to an SME, your organization, or maybe a foundation that needs your expertise. Then the second one is facilitate and spread learning culture. This means investing in research and development. Share the different links, share the ideas that you have in a platform, from WhatsApp to any platform that you feel people will be able to capture the knowledge and practice. Then you be accountable to those people, and as they also put you to account in terms of, are you able to benefit from the lessons that you're learning from these platforms? Then the other one is just make innovation a lifelong journey. Emulate, people like Elon Musk, or people like, there are a lot of innovators like Jeff Bezos, and there's a gentleman called Harry Hamel. They talk about innovation and they show you how they innovate on each and every product that they push or products that they fund in. I mean, they invest their funds in. Then the last one is mentor into the future. Mentor someone at any level that you have. You can do peer mentorship, or you can mentor young people. And there's power in that because there's something that you always learn. And I call it symbiotic relationships. Like currently, I'm honored to mentor two young people. One is a software engineer from Masinde Muliro University, and another one is a recent graduate from KU, a lady that has a focus in data science. And they've really given me insight on how to approach, like problems or challenges from an innovative way. And they also bring that young aspect of, free thinking. Then for me, I guide them on what's the best career choice to go by. And I connect them to their platforms where they can hone their skills. And these are free platforms like Fiverr, where someone can go into that platform and offer their services at whichever level. So I'd like to thank you for participating. And when you look at innovation, it's a broad topic to discuss, but the best thing that we can do right now is to see how we can capture those ideas and learn how we can go through that process very fast and implement the ideas that we have. And there are things like innovation models that we are not able to capture in this presentation, but it's very important for you to look into those models, so that when you come up with an innovation, you know what's the best model to use for your business case. And I also, maybe as you share your email, I'll be able to share through Purity something I call my innovation cheat sheet, where it guides me on how to come up with innovations and how to follow it up. And it has resources on the types of platforms that you can use. So I'd like to say thank you, and over to you, Purity.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Zach. Now we'll take a few questions. I see time is not on our side, so also try to keep your answers very short or very brief. First question from Felix. The presentation is more related to products. How does the same affect internal processes?
Well, the same thing happens to processes. When you look at processes, you look at what's the problem that you're trying to solve. So, like for example, when you look at your SOPs, it shows all the processes that you guys, for example, like in your company or in your business, the processes that you have to go through when you're doing your day-to-day work. You can also employ innovation in that. How do you change the processes to fit maybe the business case or reinvent the value chain? So it can also apply to the processes. If you take a process through the same innovative process, creative process, you know how to improve on your processes as well, not just the products.
All right, thank you so much. I read another question from Francis. In most organizations, employees may have very brilliant ideas, but these are never actualized because of the fear of one's idea being rubbished. How can organization ensure all ideas get a chance of getting to the rolling out stage?
Yes, and I think this is an organizational culture that a lot of us face, even when you've been in an organization for shortly or for a long time. People have that aspect. I might share my idea, but I won't get credit for that idea.
Yeah.
And it's important to look at the platforms that you use. Like when you look at Slack or Vima, they have a very intentional way of, if you share your ideas on that platform, then someone will be assigned. It might not be the supervisor. It could be someone who will be delegated from the team in like more like a democratic way. And that person will champion that idea to fruition. And when you look at Gmail, the person who came up with that idea is someone called Paul, and he was given credit for creating that. So the best way is make sure that there's a platform that can capture who is the source of this idea and can hold the leaders accountable in terms of if they want to stop the idea, then they have to justify. And this is from the input from all the staff members.
All right, thank you. There's another question from Julian. Is innovation for everyone? Is it innate or acquired? Are you born with it or you get it along the way?
Innovation is not, you're not born with it. What I can say you're born with it is creativity. There are people who are more creative than others. When it comes to innovation, there's I'll also share this as part of the cheat sheet. There's a gentleman who came up with like a creative test and how you can share with your team a set of challenges that works on your creativity. So innovation is something that you're born with, but it's something that you can learn. And the best way is you can hone your skills in creativity and also like from your peers. You get ideas, then you can get a perspective on something, then someone else will see how it can improve on that idea. And that's the aspect of innovation.
All right, thank you. Another question from Gladys. How do we address organizational cultures being a barrier to innovation?
Well, this is something that a lot of organizations are struggling with, because as staff members, you have to push for something called psychological safety, where you, if you have an organization that does not have a culture of people sharing their ideas, you can push to have maybe something like suggestion box. And I don't like suggestion box, I like idea boxes, where people will share their ideas and say anonymously, this is the biggest problem that we have. We don't have the culture of innovation and sharing. And we feel like sometimes we get victimized if we come up with, like if we have dissent. So the best way is push for those things that will help the organization. A platform where innovations can be shared, or ideas can be shared objectively, or having meetings where you're not judged when you share something, or when there's a mistake that has come up. You come there, you speak, and after that, there will be, it is signed by maybe HR or the management that someone will not be victimized for views that they give.
Okay, let's get the final question from Anthony. This one I'll combine with two other questions from my inbox. How do you deal with human resource rendered jobless due to innovation, especially in automation of processes? It's very similar to two other questions I've received. It is believed that by 2030, AI and robots will outperform humans in everything. And taken to its ultimate conclusion, will lead to mass redundancies on a grand scale where no human can earn a living, and all wealth will be concentrated in the hands of small elites. So what does it take to innovate for a better tomorrow? The other question, very similar to that one as well. When we talk about innovation, how expensive is it? Keep in mind, in Kenya, the cost of informal labor is relatively low as compared to the cost of innovation. Then how do you go with innovation or retain a status quo? So it's these three questions are around redundancies, how humanness jobs could be, or what is the space of innovation in terms of human beings?
Well, this has been a debate in terms of, will machines take all our jobs, and what would be the future of, like human resource if you don't have the skills, because not everyone can be skilled in like the tech industry or applying of developing applications. There's some of it is inevitable. If you're talking about, for example, if you're doing data entry, some of those jobs, automation will have to take that job away from you. So one thing that I can give you assurance is what machines cannot do is creativity. So when you talk about creativity, that's one thing that you can hone. Look at how you do your work. For example, if you're in HR or whichever department or service that you provide, how do you make sure you're creative enough so that when the automation comes, it rely on your creativity, and what the machine will be doing is just automation and going through the processes, but you're providing creativity in your skill set. Another thing is, for those people who may be redundant because of data entry, it's also transitioning your skills to more marketable things, or things that a machine will rely on. Like, for example, data science, you're able to come up with the algorithms that the machine can run. But when it comes to the fear that people are saying innovation is expensive, and for example, here in Africa, I'd like to, when you look at, there's something called Bloomberg Innovation Index, and they also do a lot of articles on innovation. China and Europe and the US, there's a lot of innovation, but they keep saying that Africa is the next hotspot. So what you can do is make sure you position yourself or your company to be ready for that. And I can tell you for a fact that there's been an interest in terms of bringing these skills to Africa. So when you look at platforms like Microsoft and Google and also Amazon, they're trying to slowly empower people in Africa, especially Kenya and Nigeria, to be able to learn digitization skills and be able to help companies go through that process. And you'd find that most of these platforms are either they are offered free here in Africa or at a very low cost. Like for example, Microsoft, they have a platform where you can do a lot of automation and sharing of ideas called Azure. It's not very expensive. It's only 900 shillings a month to access that platform. And if you have a small company that's trying to scale, what they do is they offer like a postpaid kind of service. So you only charge for the services that you use. And when you talk about is innovation expensive, it depends on how you look at it. Like I've given you an example of the application Vima. So when you look at that application, it is free to up to 50 people. And now because of the COVID, it is free for unlimited users currently. So you take advantage of those companies that for a certain level, they offer for free. Then now what you do is you position yourself, because there are a lot of these companies abroad that they want partners in Africa. And one thing that when I look at innovation in Africa, we don't put an emphasis on ownership. Because when you look at these big companies like Sandy, Glovo, when you look at the management of those countries, how much of companies, how much of it is owned by Kenyans? Like in the US, they have an award called National Medal on Innovation. So for you to appear on that award, the company has to be owned 50% by Americans. And when I look at the innovation from African Innovation Foundation, all those companies that win awards, like the company I talked about, Afiapap, it's here in Kenya, but it is owned by, the owners of the company are British, like the co-founders are British. So for us, we have to own companies, then come up with innovations. Then now when you partner with these platforms from outside, there is that 50-50, or you can get a bigger stake in that company, so that now when you come to digitization, or when it comes to now automation, you still are able to make decisions in terms of who gets fired and who gets the resources to up their skills.
All right, thank you so much, Zachary. I believe we've come to the end of this webinar. I'll just read a few comments as we wind up. One is from Mary. I'm yet to come up with an innovation, but after this class, I'll pay more attention to it. Thank you for this platform. I read another comment from Jay Moore. Innovation does not necessarily mean a product. I have been able to develop an innovative way to share my knowledge with my team by starting a how-to series every month, starting from the smallest to the biggest things. Another comment from Winnie. True, companies need to embrace collaborative ways of developing ideas, such as design thinking, Scrum, and agile ways of working. They have regular references to on customer needs throughout a project, or product development and inclusion of stakeholders from different business units within a firm. These being the key success factors to successful innovation. I take this opportunity to thank everyone who was able to join us for this webinar. I hope you've learned as much from us and as much from Zach as we all could. Until next time, coming up next week, we have another webinar, same time on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Feel free to contact us using the contact details on your screen right now. You can drop us an email at info@accurex.co.ke, or give us a call, chat with us on WhatsApp. Follow us on social media just to see what we are planning in the coming days. Other than that, Zach, thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your experience. Very, very enlightening. We hope to have you soon someday. So I think that's the end of our webinar. So continue keeping safe, sanitizing, wearing your mask once you're out of the house, and just be safe. So until next time, God bless you and stay safe.
Thanks, Purity, and great day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your day as well.